I'm going to talk this morning about some things that I've talked before, but I think that I need to emphasize some areas. I've done extensive video on how to properly load for a rifle. The loading procedures, various different cartridges, and so forth. It all applies pretty much the same. Whatever cartridge that it is, are high-powered, high-velocity cartridges. The application is basically the same. You need to use a chronograph. You need to use a 1" 10 micrometer to keep track of everything that's going on from a pressure standpoint, from a velocity standpoint, from an accuracy standpoint. And all these things all come together when there's a proper balance, a proper ballistics balance. The particular cartridge, the particular bullet, the particular powder, the powder charge, the primer, the cases, the loaded round lengths, the temperatures of what you're loading your ammunition at. You know, there's never one day at all when I'm doing any kind of shooting, irregardless of the outside temperature. My cartridges are only there for a few minutes outside. They're never in the sun. I load inside, and there's never any day throughout the year when it's hardly ever over 60 degrees of an inside temperature. It may be down in the 40s, somewhere in the 40s to maybe up in the 60s or low 60s. There's a considerable difference as you come up in temperature, especially if your gun is sitting in the sun, the barrel is hot and warmed up by the sun, the ammunition sitting in the sun. This isn't what I do. The majority of the days that I shoot, my shooting is done where I'm positioned with my bench, where I don't have much of any sunlight to speak of from a temperature standpoint to interfere with my shooting. So this creates a very desirable situation all the way across the board to be able to work up loads. Load inside, step out, and shoot the 3 rounds, and check for pressure and one thing and another, my velocities, and gradually work up a load. And I know that we have people out here that aren't using chronographs. Probably a goodly share of people are not loading chronographs. That's because they're just a simple reloader. They really don't know what they're doing. All they can do is just look at a book and see what a charge is and go entirely by that, and they don't have anything else to go by. They're not using a chronograph, they're not using a micrometer. They don't know what the uniformity of the velocities are. They don't know whether it's possible to have accuracy or not, because you can't have accuracy unless you have uniform velocities, close velocity spreads, not only at 100 yards, but as you stretch the range, that velocity spread needs to be, even more importantly, tight to be able to maintain accuracy downrange. You can't have broad velocity spreads and expect to get top accuracy downrange. The rifles that I build, as a rule, almost everything somewhere that rifle is going to, a hunting rifle is going to shoot somewhere between 3/8 of an inch probably, maybe tighter, up to maybe 6/10 of an inch somewhere, depending on the actual bullets being used, the combinations and everything that's involved. And in some instances, what a person wants to use, and don't get your heart set on using a particular bullet to find out that the rifle doesn't like them. And there are just some bullets that are inherently accurate, more accurate than other bullets, and I've figured these things out over a lifetime. I would venture to guess that probably over a lifetime, just in 30 calibers alone, that I probably use somewhere around 80 to 100 actually different bullets and bullet brands and weights and one thing and another. From 60 some odd years ago to this point in time. So I've used a lot of different combinations and so forth. This is what gives me the ability to talk about this from an experience standpoint. We've got too many things going on here in the shooting end of things. People that are just simple reloaders that still don't have a clue what the difference is between a reloader and a hand loader, even though I've extensively explained it. And I'm explaining it at this point, making broad statements that such and such cartridge is known to do this or known to do that. Oh boy, you know, we just simply have some combinations that are maybe a little bit more desirable depending on the components than others. And we've got a lot of different 7mm cartridges. I don't think there's a 7mm cartridge made, whatever it may happen to be, whether it's a factory designated cartridge or whether it's a Wildcat cartridge or whatever it is, properly loaded, that it won't perform to very, very top expectations. So don't tell me that this cartridge isn't known for being accurate. All you're doing is telling me how little you know about what the real facts are. I don't find any difference at all in the accuracy potential between a 30-06 and a 300 Ultra Mag in the accuracy department. Everything else considered, everything else being uniform, everything properly attended to, with proper load workup, the proper powders and everything else. And there are situations when you might happen to use a certain powder that you might see that there's something going on here to do with pressure and one thing or another. It may be a pressure spike. You run into that. My suggestion always is abandon that powder and go to something else. Or maybe abandon a certain primer with a certain powder, and so on and so forth. But when we have people that come along and say that, you know, this cartridge or that cartridge is known for pressure spikes, all you're doing is just showing me your ignorance. I'm trying to explain to you what really the fact of the matter is. So I have reloading dies to load a very, very tremendous amount of different cartridges. And some I've only worked with a few times, and some I've worked with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times working up loads for. So if you want the dope, come to Randy for it. I certainly don't have all the answers, and I can't give you a definitive answer for a rifle in a particular situation that you have without having the rifle in my hands, without me, myself, working with that rifle. So I can't diagnose every individual situation by an email or a phone call. I sometimes can point you in the right direction, and sometimes it works out wonderfully well. And normally those people I hear back from, because they're so appreciative that I've headed them in the right direction, because they were really at a loss what to do. So I can do things sometimes, but I don't work miracles. And I can't work up a load for your rifle via email or over the phone. I can point you in a certain direction, but damn it, this is just how it is. There's all sorts of other aspects to do with this gun business. One thing another. I've figured out a lot of things over a lot of years, and I try to share as much of this as I think that the audience is capable of being able to digest and being able to understand. And anyway, I think that I do more. I know that I do more building a rifle, a complete rifle, scoped, load workup, than almost anybody else out there. So if you want it done, you want it taken care of, you want something that you can rely on, I've done it for myself for many, many rifles over a lifetime. Rifles that I've been shooting, some of them for about 63 years, individual rifles. Just like I worked up a load for them many years ago, and I may have changed the bullet over time, I may have changed the powder. But anyway, remember that I can't straighten everything out through an email. And this brings up another point. When you email me about something, I'm interested in a 7mm custom 7mm Remington Magnum. Please give me some details. Give me an idea where to start. I am not a mind reader. I don't have that extra ability to be able to read minds, exactly what you're looking for. Please give me a place to start so that I can properly answer your want. I want something to hunt elk with, and maybe to hunt deer and so forth, and maybe occasional bear. This would be helpful, because I don't know whether you're just hunting antelope and deer, or whether you're hunting some of these other animals, or just what. So I need a few details. I need to know these things. I need to know if you're right-handed. I need to know if you're left-handed, because this changes the picture considerably, because not every situation is there a left-handed action made to build a rifle on for some of these situations. And you can't put a cartridge in an action that it won't fit into, by the way. This doesn't work. So I repeatedly get emails, well, I want to do this or I want to do that. Well, you haven't even thought, along the line there at all when you ask, because the cartridge won't fit in what you'd like to build it around. And, well, I like to have this or I like to have that. Well, you need to do maybe just a little bit of research and a little bit of thinking so that I can properly answer your need for what you want to do. This is important. We've got individuals that just absolutely don't want a fiberglass stocked rifle. I build a lot of fiberglass stocked rifles because it makes a lot of sense. In all hunting situations, a good quality fiberglass stock will last many lifetimes and beyond. Unlike a wood stock. A wood stock is not as forgiving as a good quality Macmillan fiberglass stock with molded in color pattern and so forth. So you've got to understand. And you know, I get some pretty wild wants thinking that you can just go and put almost any cartridge in almost any action. Well, it's got to be able to work. It's got to fit in a magazine. It's got to fit in either a magazine or a clip. It's got to be capable of holding that round. It's got to, the rifle, the action's got to be capable of cycling that round and whatnot. So don't bother to ask for the impossible. And I get quite a few impossibles, believe it or not. So anyway, I guess I'll leave it at that.